Hello, Free Enterprise fans. Welcome to this week's edition of the Community Club Showcase. This week we are circling back to the Underground Racing Club, and we have two exceptional runners here. We have last year's Zima's Zone winner Penguinator and recent destroyer of Group Flag Asyncs Zilch. We'll be going head to head here and finishing up this Underground Racing Club seed. My co-commentator today is CommanderLeonhart, and would you like to give us a rundown of how you feel about these flags?
Thank you, Flurry. Sure thing. So, the Underground Racing Club flag is designed to be a bit more challenging than most of the things we come across. One of the main ways that's expressed is with the K unsafe flag. Normally, you don't have to go up to the moon to go underground, but with K unsafe on, that is a possibility. It's happened before, and it could happen for us tonight.
Yeah, it's definitely the biggest concern if you're racing these seeds is that it's entirely possible you don't see a way underground until you get Vanilla Ogo, and oh, isn't that a whole lot of fun?
The runners don't want to see it, but here in chat, we would love to see it.
Now,
Beyond that, beyond that, Classic Forge and Complete the Giant are two required objectives every time. The other two are random, and they haven't been too trolly to us tonight. We have Raising the Big Whale, which you had to do on the way to the Giant anyway, and taking care of the Tower of Zion.
Yeah, so it's basically one additional key item that our runners have to find. So we're looking for the Darkness Crystal, we're looking for the Adamant, we're looking for the Legend Sword, and we want to find the Earth Crystal. And our runners would love to see the Earth Crystal anyway because we do have a weighted looting system right now. It is T Pro, so if you've been playing flags on the group set, you're used to T Wildish, you're not exactly going to be swimming in crystal swords and murasames with actual edges to use them. The loot's going to be a little more not quite on the good end, but that treasury, all bets are off. That's where you can get some amazing loot. So our runners would love to see the Earth Crystal anyway. Having it be required just makes it even better. And it looks like we're going to get started. We have a Porum start. Let's see who character number 2 is.
Ooh, it is a Dark Knight Cecil. Oh, and a quick magma key. So much for K unsafe coming into play.
Yeah, that kind of takes care of that. Now, this team is not the strongest team offensively. Forum's best bet is, well, hope you find a heroin robe. Dark Knight Cecil can get by with a black sword. If you want to check weapon shops, usually when you want to find a black sword, it's in the very last shop that you find. So our runners are kind of probably hoping to find a pretty good smattering of J items to get started. You might even see an early dip underground just to get some looting, but whoever that character is on Hobbs is going to be kind of a big deal.
And yep, there go both of our runners. Standing in the exact same spot, diving into Agart to drop the magma key to get to that locked up loot underground. Much better under T Pro.
Yeah, the loot's better. You're going to get at least one freebie in the Feymarch spot. So who knows? Maybe that actually gives us a key item that gives us something for free. It could be the Darkness Crystal. Now, if you're used to playing Seeds where in S Standard, we're on S Pro. So you're not going to see Sirens, Bacchae, or Hourglasses unless they're actually in Kogal's shop. But what you will find underground is cabins. Those are kind of important because you want to refill your HP and MP. Cure 3s are slightly more or less important, but still kind of a big deal. Illusions, and most importantly, the Cursed Ring. That's in armor shops, and well, that's a pretty good Agart shop to start.
Hard to argue with life potions and tents, no doubt.
Yeah, as pro, you're very likely to see our runners. It might even go immediately to Tomra, but regardless, when they check shops, the armor shop is going to be almost certainly checked. That Cursed Ring is a pretty big deal.
Zilch is giving us a job dwarf check real fast.
And might actually record for his job door check.
Well, that Sylph could be a nice reward for being a hero of the people if he comes across Iridia.
Yeah, early Sylph with an early Iridia can really get you by a lot of the early game stuff. And and there's a black sword in the shop, so you're definitely gonna pick up one of those. In the event you don't end up wanting to use Sylph, the price hike we got in 4.1 is going to help as far as just early game funding. Penguinators taking advantage of the stronger loot in a dungeon with trap chest. So is going to check the bosses or check the chest here. As soon as he gets the warrior chest, will likely reset out. But you can get some pretty good loot here.
He's actually gotten the warrior chest. It was on the second floor, the chest on the right. So he is
nice.
Clear out the rest of the cave.
Cool, good catch. Yeah, so in this case, yeah, check everything. And even if it's not something our character can use, and especially as far as Porm goes, her equipment kit isn't terribly potent to start with. It's going to be a lot of good stuff to sell. And you can see Check going straight for the armor shop, wants to see if there's a curse ring. That curse ring is 25k now, so if you want to buy it, you're going to have to give some good stuff up.
And there it is. He's almost there, and he finds the one last thing. Curse ring is still absolutely worth it at 25k for its ability to set up your agility.
Yeah, curse ring does. For those not quite as familiar with how agility works, and to be honest, we could do an entire stream on Final Fantasy IV agility, but we don't want to put you to sleep. So the best way I can put it is it takes one character who has the cursed ring and is in the middle slot. His stats all get tanked, so you're essentially losing the character. And everybody else in your party and the boss that you're fighting are all the fastest possible. So it's a good way to temper out a boss that would have some kind of a speed advantage. It does also sometimes make bosses faster than they normally would be in the event that you decide to do it. And we do see, hey, there's a free spot at Leviathan. I wonder if our runners are actually going to take it. Oh, jeez.
I missed the sparkle. I saw that he was going to check into the sparkle, but didn't see who it was.
So do you like Mega Nuke? That is the theme of the summon monster bosses. They both cast Mega Nuke. One's just going to tell you about it, and the other is just going to do it.
So we have two different styles of parenting in Feymarch. We have the one parent that counts down and says, you better wise up before I get down to one, and the other that just says, no, don't do that.
So with the cursed ring, the last time I tested this out, this is actually doable. It's going to take a little bit of time, but since that character who's not wearing the cursed ring would be as fast as possible, it also means your Starveil is going to last a little bit longer. So you're going to get 3 off. So that would do 30k damage. The spot has 36k, so I'm going to kind of just contradict exactly what I just said. We might not have a way to do that extra 6k damage. But it's something, if you're not something you want to do right now, it's something if you want to come back and do, it's there, and it's free. It's relatively free as soon as the party gets some levels and party members.
Right. I am certainly not the aces these two runners are. Few people are, but I personally would not be coming back without a fuller party to be ready for when Wyvern's bouncing nukes all over the place.
Yeah, if Bahamut was at Asura, I think the runners would take it right then, because three of those Mega Nukes would get the job done. Wyvern, on the other hand, yeah, we'll talk to you later.
Well, Zilch has cursed his Dark Knight and is going to deal with this bomb.
All right, so if I could be wrong about this, but I believe the Starveil will at the very least last for 3 countdowns. Starveil's last 30 ticks. I'm guessing 5 ticks, 1 per count, and when the boss is at RA1. And since everything is now at RA1, might get the 4th off, but should at least get the 3, and this is 36k, so the 4th Mega Nuke will get the job done.
Well, he made sure to hold on to that first Star Veil until the last moment to maximize its duration.
Yeah, getting that second Star Veil off the character is going to be a little tricky because the countdown is going to be faster than he expects. But if Cecil does get this Star Veil up, that's game.
Nicely timed, slipping that Star Veil in between the 2 and the 1.
All right, so they should both have this one. The wall may run out on Porum at the end here, but Cecil will for sure be able to reflect Mega Nuke number 4, and that should take care of Bahamut in the spot.
In the meantime, Penguinator is finding a lot of good news on Mount Hobbs, Rosa, and Demist for bonus round.
Yeah, finding that bonus round super early is always nice because it means you don't have to worry about checking potential bosses for that spot. And it's also a rather annoying fight to find late game because you can't really cast Berserk on it unless you want a bevy of Cold Mist. And while being in the middle of July, Cold Mist may sound something cool and refreshing, it is not what you want in your run.
No, not at all. Though it's more of a very light breeze. It doesn't hit that hard usually, but you don't like the time loss, that's for sure. Zilch takes down Bahamut like a pro. Defense Sword, probably not exactly what he was hoping for, but whenever he gets up ordeals, Paladin will be happy to be swinging that around.
Yeah, it's going to be a great weapon, and until we find a Holy Sword, if we find a Holy Sword, that's going to be the best weapon he can find for Cecil right now. Penguinator did take advantage of another item that is in the gated shops. That's the Vampire. It's going to give him about 500-600 damage or so per turn. And given that our characters do not really have a form of offense other than the Black Sword, which is okay, but not great. It's more, at least you're actually doing damage. That Shadow Sword basically tickles enemies. Black Sword actually does some damage, but the Vampire will get it done much, much quicker, and you don't want to have to sit through the mist cycle if you can at all avoid it.
Definitely. It takes so much time, and early on, especially with a party like this where you're struggling with early DPS, those J items are so important to get you through the first boss fights and get some levels under your belt.
Yeah, and Zilch is reaping some reward a little bit of doing that early Bahamut. His Porum is now already learned Berserk, so it's already like at least level 19. Cecil's not really going to reap any benefits of that because he's going to go back to level 1 as soon as he changes into a Paladin. But early Zerk never hurts.
Absolutely not. If you find the right gear for Porum, she can do some amazing things with that Berserk. Penguinator's not going to be missing that defense sword, as he's picked up a lightsaber in Antler.
Hey, seeing this boss here is a little bit of a bummer. You kind of don't want to see your free spots early on. You'd rather see them like on the moon. That being said, should not pose that much of a problem at all. In fact, those the soldiers have such low HP that even a measly Thor Rage gets them down. Officer retreats, and that is that.
And we get a Luca key.
Someone once told me always sealed. Not sure if I would believe that person, but you never know. It's always interesting to see. Yeah, right. It's always interesting to see if when you get those long key item checks and you get them early, like it's really easy to take something like the Twin Harp and say, I'm just not going to do it. It's going to take 5 minutes. I got the Darkness Crystal. I'm going to go moon first. Whee! But if you get the Twin Harp super early, like both of our runners did, and that happens to have the Earth Crystal, and you're going to put that off, there are serious consequences to that. So I wonder if getting the Twin Harp really early is going to prevent our runners from putting that off until, post moon.
It is an interesting point. For me, it sometimes comes down to how many people are in the race And if it's a smaller race, especially the 1v1 sort of things that we're going to have coming up in the 3-miss zone, do I feel like this is someone that's on my level, or am I up against an absolute legend like one of these two runners, where I look at that twin harp and go, maybe I've got to take a chance on this and hope it's what I need, and that the other guy never looks at it because it's such a long shot.
Yeah, it's definitely a question that a lot of runners are going to be faced when we start going into the 3-miss zone, and you get a lot of seeds where there's only one key item required, and you're like, oh, well, if it happens to be there, I'm tanked. Whereas if it was like a Fabul Gauntlet seed where I need 4 or 5 key items, and you're like, okay, well, if it happens to be the second to last thing I do, so be it. Maybe I can make up the difference. So. It's going to be interesting to see where that goes. Often you'll see sometimes Fabul skipped in his hope of maybe doing the one-stop Fabul and having the pan first. But I think with an early underground, just go for the discount double check, get the 2 down there, and that's what Zilch is going to go for right now.
Completely agree with all of that. The early Fey March check doesn't give you the pan. It's check your freebies is one of the 2 golden rules of running, and Wolf Boss might not be technically free, but it is close enough. Of course, when it's water bag.
I'm kind of wondering what the golden rule is. I hope it's not agility related, because then the second rule becomes an entire lecture.
I think the other rule, other than check your freebies, is check your objectives.
There you go. So Penguinator is actually going to go back and take care of Bahamut now, not wanting to possibly miss out on a required free key item that's free, which totally makes sense. Is now going to have 2 characters to Starveil. This means you don't have to worry about the timer running out super fast because the boss is already won. So one character can do a life potion, the other can, get ready. Makes things a little easier. Is only going to get the defense sword, so not going to be terribly helpful. Whereas Zilch gets the tower key, which you always like to see earlier rather than later.
Yeah. Keyless Tower isn't one of the most painful plays out there. It certainly can sometimes be exactly what you have to do if the key items are trolly, but it definitely feels better to go in there with the key in hand.
Yeah, it's one less check you have to worry about possibly orphaning later. We do get the hook, which doesn't immediately open anything up aside really from the Eblon shop. It does give the character check, which I'll be interested to see if Zilch decides to do this. I'm not sure if Porum has enough levels for exit. She's really close. If they found an exit, checking that spot and maybe finding a foo or an edge would totally be worth it. Without exit, you are gambling the walk out. So it's probably, if she's not an exit, I would imagine Hobbs is gonna put her pretty close to there. So it's probably doing that first.
I don't know off the top of my head what level she learns exit. She's level 22.
I want to say it's the first spell on the 4th row. I know it as far as blinking.
That's better than I could have thought.
There you go. Zilch found an exit. Okay, so that might kind of dictate his routing right here. Now, finding Demist, of course, is going to be super fun. Gonna go ahead and check that first, but after that, I think a character check with 2 white mages and still Cecil. I think a character check might be in order here.
Did anyone see Penguinator check E-Mist after Hobbs? Looks like
that's
now.
Good question. Okay. I'm not sure.
Going right there now.
So if putting it off until this point isn't going to be terribly damaging. If you had gone to the moon without doing this, that might have been an issue. Zeus Gauntlet is something. Yeah, Zeus Gauntlet is something that's going to be great when we get a character then equip it. Unfortunately, we don't have one yet until Cecil decides to transform into a paladin, or we get a character from the hook. So Zilch might benefit from that first, but it looks like Zilch hadn't quite done Antlion Cave, so is going to do Antlion Cave now. Fading Antlion Cave can have disastrous consequences for your free enterprise health. So want to get that done as soon as possible. It's going to save a little bit of time over Penguinator by not looting it at all.
Yeah, and that's another thing that is definitely part of leveling up your free enterprise game, knowing when you can skip past chests and take the chance on what you might be missing out on versus getting the time save.
Yeah, it's hard to do.
Call to ordeals has intensified to the point that he is climbing the mountain.
It's so hard, especially when you play like the League flags when you're on T Wildish. You're like, every chest could be a crystal sword. So yeah, it's kind of tough, but you're absolutely right. It's learning when to kind of turn off the looting and save time by just walking is absolutely something that takes a long time to master.
Giant bowling ball, narrow corridor. I've seen this movie.
Yeah, this CPU is more like a Pentium 3. It's not really going to give a whole lot of issue for our runners. It's going to be more annoying than anything else because you can't really back row glitch Cecil, so his damage is going to be booty. Now Rosa, with a decent bow and arrow, will do okay. Is going to use the Star Veil or the Star Dust to wipe out the characters right now. Has the guy? Oh, unfortunate! The board AI just struck again.
It saw the Gaia drum coming and fired off, but Penguinator was prepared and had a life potion at the ready that he's going to reset out and give this another go.
Yeah, that was just unlucky. Unfortunately, in Final Fantasy IV, when an item is queued, you lose the item in your inventory before the character gets the action. Can actually take the action. So that Globe 199 hitting Porum when it did meant bye-bye Gaia Drum. And at that point, it's probably just faster to reset and then use all your J items right away, rather than try to get your characters up and hope you get a cure potion before the next Mazer comes out.
It does seem like a lot of trouble to try and salvage the fight for probably no benefit.
Yeah, so maybe I shouldn't have clowned on CPU. It did actually cause a reset. So 3 points.
You know, sometimes that old laptop with the Pentium 3 comes through for a spark of life when you least expect it.
And of course, board AI striking again. We just zerked Cecil, so who gets globed? Well, Cecil. And then, there's another character that can possibly do damage. So 2 points for CPU. CPU 2, Penguinator 0.
CPU tonight programmed by Boardface AI.
So we'll see what the strat ends up being here, if he ends up changing it up. Now, this spot has, I want to say, a little over 2,000 HP, so a 500 HP vampire and about 600 per on the Stardust and the Gaia Drum means there's not a lot of life left to do after that. So I think he's got the right idea. He's just gotten really unlucky.
Yeah, I think that with the split up of hit points to the attacker and defender, you're going to be a little over 2k on the CPU. If we just if the defender ever gets a remedy off, then that'll tell us the defender's hit points right there, and we can figure out the CPU from that. But no such information for us as Penguinator gets through.
There you go. Yeah, that is actually a pretty handy tip for anybody who's playing, if you ever want to see exactly how much HP the CPU has, Remedy is a 10% heal. So you can take that heal amount and multiply it by 10, and that's how much damage you got to do. And then when you happen to see CPU at elements, you can shed a tear, because that is 65k HP.
Oh, that CPU at
Which has been happening quite a bit recently.
It tagged me once in a pickup race recently.
Yeah. Leviathan Ordeals is a little tricky here because the magic stat in this spot is pretty good, so those Ice 2s are going to one-shot pretty much everybody. I do hope Penguinator saved post-CPU. Curse Ring might, Curse Ring is in order here, and you'll probably see a couple Star Veils used as well. Character check is just another Porum. You can thank Demarine for our bevy of Porums.
Now, the thing about the Star Veils is some have already been used on Bahamut, and so if Penguinator hasn't picked up any in shops, he might be running low.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think you only start with 2, and we did see him use 2 of those Star Veils at the Bahamut fight. So we'll have to kind of peek into that inventory if we can see. Okay, I did see at least a Star Veil there.
But all he's got standing now is a Berserk Dark Knight, so see if it's enough.
It'll be kind of close because he's at RA1 and Leviathan is going to do this big wave, which is only going to do percentage damage. So he should get at least 3 attacks in before the next. But you got to do 4K. I believe it's either 3 or 4K, somewhere in that neighborhood. So
I think it's 3 at this spot.
Yes,
it's gonna be a lot that you're asking a black sword to cut down even on Berserk.
Yeah, man, this Ordeals is kind of brutal.
This is why people fade Ordeals at times. Me, I'm a diehard power couple aficionado, so Ordeals calls to me early, especially the moment I have a Dark Knight. But a lot of people will fade it when there's no boss hunts and all you're looking for is key items. Sometimes it pays off, and like fading antlions, sometimes it comes back to haunt you.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. You could even say this mountain is an ordeal. But our opponent's gonna want to probably try and do it more often than not in this flag set. If for no other reason, A, Paladin Cecil is really good, and B, our most dependable form of a grind is going to be the D Machine. So yeah, having that Tella on standby in case we find one, there's usually a pretty good chance you're going to see at least every character at some point in time. So that's another reason to kind of do Ordeals. But man, these 2 fights.
Mm-hmm. Well, while they slog through these fights, we can talk a bit about the characters because we didn't get a chance to go over the character flags. The character rules are almost the same as what you'd be used to from the old Fubul Gauntlet brackets. We have C standard, distinct 7, no dupes. And so that means of the 12 characters that are there, only 7 of them will be showing up in the seed, and you can't take any dupes along.
That is a very good point, and I totally forgot about the distinct 7 part, so thank you for the correction. So we might not actually see a Tella, but we are almost guaranteed to keep this Cecil in the party. So yeah, Ordeals is kind of you kind of got to do it, and like even at this point, Penguinator's put so much time into it that was looked like that might have been his only Star Veil. So here's hoping that gets the job done.
As long as it has the necessary duration, of course, he'll be fine. He cures through the big waves and bounces the ice. You just have to see if it lasts.
Yeah, it would be an instance where a lower battle speed might help to try to reduce the amount of ATB ticks that go by when you're, menuing. In this case, holding A is probably a really good idea because at that point you're getting as little ATB takes as you want, but the reflected ice 2s get the job done.
And finally, Leviathan crumbles.
Well, he's gonna be very like what could possibly go. I mean, is Golbez sitting as our third fight?
Ha 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 ha. Hey, maybe it's the alt gauntlet.
That would be.
You have felt like you've spent enough time on this mountain, and now you give me 6-4 fights. Come on.
Yeah, you don't expect to be leaving Mount Ordeals at the 30-minute mark, but sometimes Ordeal's gonna ordeal.
Yeah, even with a magma key start, where you took the time underground, you expect to be done here before then.
Good observation in chat. Alt Gauntlet is kind of off. That's one I always get when I'm actually running this flag set, and then I get the regular Gauntlet, and I'm like, this is so blah. Where's? And then I get it at Ogo, and you're like, oh, thank goodness.
Thank you for that heads up, Charduck, on that Charduck. So the Gauntlet, traditional Gauntlet, is only 5 fights. Is that correct, Flurry?
1, 2.
It's been a while
3.
since I've fought it. Let's see if we.
I believe it's 6. I believe it is 6.
2 sets with the Imp and Water Hag. 2 sets of General shouting charge and a Gargoyle.
I believe it's 3 sets of the General Fighter. That's
Gotcha.
Fighter, Water Hag, Fighter, Gargoyle, Water Hag, Fighter. Milonzi, not a fan of that lightsaber that Penguinator is wielding, and yeah, there you go. Ordeal's complete.
Frenchman Milonzi slightly out of position.
I didn't quite catch what it was. We're going to see right here on Zilch's side, just a crystal ring. So, I mean, we already have the most efficient agility manipulator in the game. So crystal ring at this point just doubles up as good magic defense and protection against some status elements. But it's still a good item to get. It's just, especially after what Penguinator went through, is like, Ordeals, please.
It would have made a Golbez here extra trolly, because a crystal
Yeah.
lovely thing to be wearing when you go up against Golbez and the game hands it to you and says, no, you don't get a chance to equip it. Here comes your Golbez.
Yeah, when he drops either a crystal ring or a ribbon, and you're like, well, this would have been great to have 30 seconds ago. All right, so we're going to round up some shopping. Usually you want to hit at least, if you haven't hit Silvera or Mysidia by this time, this is usually a good time to do it. If you have the money to pull off Toroya, then great, and 110 GP, Penguinator has the money to pretty much go to whatever shop he wants. And then I think we will likely see a trip to Baron Inn.
It is next on the radar of key item checks, and there's still both the Darkness and Earth Crystal to be found, as well as Legend Sword Adamant. For all the concern about the objectives laying out, the key items have not shown up yet.
Yeah, the ones we have gotten are kind of behind a little bit of a time commitment. So Penguinator is okay. So he's following the golden rule of check your freebies. Is probably going to do the cheeky, I'm going to loot 1 just because loot 2. Okay, because the loot priority or the loot quality in Silk Cave is actually quite good. And if you see a trap chest, you just reset out, and that's all good to go. At this point, he might just be doing the discount double check. His party is now at a high enough level where Baron Inn first, just in case it has the pan, might make sense. But I totally understand if you're going to get 2 checks, and Penguinator is sitting at the only other 2 key items he's gotten are not checks he's going to want to make either by level or by time. I totally understand going for the discount double check here. Zilch is going to eschew the Baronin to check out Dwarf Castle. This can be a tricky fight at around the mid-level range.
Well, Zilch had ducked in here before, and I didn't get a chance to see the sprite before he reset, but I'm sure that he saw it and saw this karate man, and he says, I've got a paladin, I've got a plan.
Yep. On point. This after kick number 2, any attack by Paladin Cecil is going to get good old karate, say ouch, and that'll be that. So kick, not doing too much damage here, probably around the neighborhood of 100, yeah, 83. So once the blink was gotten off successfully, that's pretty much the fight. Could get trolled by a rough second encounter here, but we'll see. The experience is going to get around 21k, which is going to be super nice for Cecil.
Yeah, and this is just a great example of a great runner, a little bit of knowledge. One of those checks that not everyone goes in for, but occasionally that bit of knowledge pays off huge. Tells Zilch that he can run here and at least take that boss out, maybe get a character, and in this case it's Tella, and maybe the new character helps him carry the second.
Yeah, so Ordeals is paying off doubly here. Tella is going to come armed with this full suite of spells. I was mildly hoping for an Ogo to kind of troll you after you've lost a whole bunch of your HP, and here comes a 50% HP check. Here you go. But Ruby, not too bad here. The magic counters, if you do a fight command, he's going to counter with fire too. But the magic stat here is pretty laughable. So the fire counters aren't going to be that much of a problem. Glare isn't going to do nearly as much HP as you would expect, but it could still wipe off a low HP character.
Zilch is definitely not worried about fire 2 counters if he's having Porum swing in with a beast.
Yeah, the glare is probably gonna it KOs Porum or Tella. Cecil will laugh heartily at your fire attack and just keep on swinging. Now the fire counters may, even with this low amount, may make it a little difficult to res, but one more cast of virus and that takes care of that.
There must be something inherently creepy about this hand, because no one ever steps on it or picks it up and throws it across the room. They just stand there and let it take the crystal.
I mean, admittedly, if I saw a disembodied hand floating through the air, I would A, be pretty creeped out, and B, would not expect it to have the strength to grab well, I guess a crystal isn't necessarily terribly heavy, let alone have the ability to teleport out. Does get a sand ruby. He did see who the character is there. I don't think I didn't quite catch it, but if it was a good character, we'll probably immediate trip to Kaipo.
I think it was a twin, but I did not get a good enough look at the ponytail to see which twin it was, and given that Zilch is not making a beeline for Kaipo, I'm going to guess it's a duplicate.
Yeah, if it's a duplicate Porum, no reason to make the trick. Palom would be nice to have here. The way you check with the ponytail, and I have a very odd way of remembering it, is that the ponytail is the opposite side of their dominant hand. So if the ponytail is on the left, opposite dominant hand would be your right, and Porum is right-handed. And then vice versa. It's a weird way to remember. I know, I could probably just come up with, there's an R in Porum or something like that, but hey, there you go.
And whatever mnemonic works for you. The shirt mnemonic for me is that Porum wears the orange shirt.
There you go. Alright, so it looks like we're taking a trip up to the tower. Now, if this was Penguinator, he is famous for making the half tower play. And it wouldn't be It would be an understandable idea because while Zilch's levels are pretty good, this spot does have about 24k HP, and that's, our offense basically consists of Cecil wielding a defense sword. So, I mean, it'll get the job done, especially if you get a boss that's, not throwing a whole bunch of mechanics at you. You would like to have a second fighter, and wouldn't you know, there's a second fighter at Baron Inn.
The Dragoon. An Antlion in the first slot. Better there than the second. Got some vanilla Dark Imps over in the cannon room, and that's a lovely place for them to be.
Yeah, it's one of those spots where I think in S Pro you're pretty cool with seeing Dark Imps here. And we had to bring up Golbez, and sure enough, this is actually one of the better spots to see Golbez because this spot is usually really slow, but we're seeing the backfire of the Cursed Ring here.
Right. Your general rules are to give yourself a fast anchor against a slow boss, since you can outrun him anyway, and slow anchor against a fast boss to give everyone else a chance to catch up.
Yeah, so normally our characters would have quite a bit of a speed edge on this spot, but since Cursed Ring is making everybody relative agility 1, now all of a sudden Golbez is just as fast as you are, and Penguinator is probably still sitting on battle speed 1, so getting a Star Veil off could be challenging. Now, having that Crystal Ring does end up paying off here because Rosa did not get hit by the Hold Gas, therefore was able to get a turn off and just needed the 1 out of 3 chance of not getting hit by the Shadow Dragon. Sure enough, it paid off. So Penguinator's in a pretty good spot here. This shouldn't be too much of a problem.
No, he'll be fine and he'll be through. Board AI missed a bet on that dragon kill, not taking out Bearer of the Crystal Ring. Zilch has gone all the way up to the top of the tower and found a sparkle, and that sparkle is paled in.
Probably one of the bosses you wouldn't want to see here just because of the strategy this team is going to have to employ. Like we said, the only damage that this team has is pretty much Zerk Cecil with Defense Sword, and it counters every fight with that slow. So I hope you're a fan of the slow animation and the slow sound, because you're going to be hearing a whole lot of do from Pale Dim about 15 or so times.
Commentator's curse from you, Flurry. Weren't you just saying something about how it's great when Golbez is holding a ribbon?
Oh, did he actually drop a ribbon? That's fantastic. Yeah, that would have been nice to have 30 seconds ago. And it's not a key item, but
a crystal ring on a character, and you're not afraid of no Golbez.
No, not at all. But the real treasure here, I think, is getting Kane. Having a second melee fighter at this point is pretty nice. I haven't paid full attention to the loop. If he's got the defense sword and he's got a lightsaber, so he's got, ways to go, and is going to decide to give the fans what they want.
Not even stopping for that spicy T-Pro Chocobo loot. Some people will like to loot the Chocobo forests on T-Pro, but Penguinator showing that you've got to decide when the loot is worth it and when you just need to truck on.
Admittedly, of the Chocobo forest, this one does have the longest walk to get what is affectionately known as chicken butt, but yeah, it actually has a pretty good loot percentage in comparison to everything else, and Penguinator is kind of banking on this having something a little bit by doing some looting, not a whole bunch, because that chest and the chest right before the room are relatively, not far off the beaten path. But usually, if you get something here, you're like, all right, well, I'm not going to reset out of this. I'm just going to take an exit, and I didn't get anything terribly great. But I mean, just given that we don't really have a whole lot of key items left, there's a pretty good chance this has something.
Well, we see that he does at least have a defense sword for his dragoon, so that's taken care of. Doing some equipping as well as making sure, or trying his best to keep everybody magnetized for the upcoming fight to get through that scene as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I think he was hoping he had either iron arrows or an iron ring to get on Rosa, and doesn't have either. So Rosa, at the very least, is probably going to be, unmagnetized. Now, because she's been KO'd for, okay, never mind. She has way more HP than Forum. So
Yeah,
one kamikaze will get this done.
the good old kamikaze backup plan.
All right, and it looks like it is time for DJ Spoonie B and his rockin' tunes. So we will let you guys have at it. Here we go. As someone who plays a fair amount of Worlds Collide, this is one that is near and dear to my heart. It is Science Theme.
Mr. Thou himself.
And we get what could be a little bit of a rude fight. Magic here is, I believe, decent enough to where Odin Zansitsuken is probably going to wipe the party, but hopefully having two RA1 Zerg characters is enough to at least jam the queue enough. Just like radars, queues love to be jammed, and yeah, it got the job done. So cool. Odin's down. Let's see what Twin Harp happens to give.
While we were all being wooed by the dulcet tones of DJ Spoonie Bard, Zilch found a legend sword as he left the tower.
And just a Stardust. What a kind of a bummer. I have had a rash of instances, at least in playing practice seeds, where in the Twin Harp room you get one of the bosses that forces a music change, either such as like the Magic Killer himself, Vanilla Dark Elf, and it's so rude when you get like a really good song, and it's like, oh nope, here you go.
On the other hand, sometimes you get one of your favorite songs, like for me, The Oath, and you get a gauntlet, and
Yeah.
I hate it.
There was one recently that had Battle at Big Bridge, which is really good. But no, I will buy it. Here comes the second one.
That is some epic battle music. If listening to that does not get your blood pumping, then I don't know what to do.
Alright, so it looks like we're getting a little bit of retracing here. Penguinator is going to get the gang fight, and we'll have just an easy time. And in fact, it will probably be a little easier because he won't have to worry quite as much about his HP count going into fight number 2. Is even taking precautions by chucking a few Cure 2s just to be safe, just in case there's an Ogo here. So I guess the question now really becomes, what is the next step? We did see Tower was required, as Zilch now has the Legend Sword. But after that, it's kind of either Luke Key or we might have to start doing that required Wyvern at Asura. Ugh.
Neither of which are pleasant thoughts. It's funny how we looked at these objectives and started booing and metaphorically throwing popcorn at the screen, but it does not pay to underestimate what the randomizer might hand you. No matter how jetty it looks like it's going to be, there's always room for a troll.
Yeah, any single seed that has you doing a required frame arch boss can absolutely be a recipe for disaster. We've all come across those seeds that was like, oh, this seems to be going great, and you stop getting key item, you stop getting a key item. Hey, look, it's a required evil wallet Leviathan. Have fun.
Oh, the evilest walls. The evil wall.
So it looks like we got, Zilch is going to go ahead and check Baron in at this point. We'll be happy to see the cane, less so to see boss number 2, which being Golbez. Does have the crystal ring, although I would imagine the crystal ring is probably on Rosa, and I think she's KO'd right now, so that might be a little... Oh, I wonder if Zilch knows what this fight is, because having the two characters there is going to actually make this fight a lot easier.
If he checked it at some point, I don't think he did. It might just be a heads up play by a person that says, at the hit points at this spot, my Paladin can handle just about anything, but I haven't seen a Golbez. Let's just go ahead and put 2 people on the floor just in case.
Yeah, and another thing to keep in mind is that since we're getting to the point where we're running low on overworld checks, that usually means a darkness crystal is appearing sooner than later. That's going to give the option for a D-Machine grind, and Rosa is a lovely candidate for the D-Machine grind. Getting her up into the upper 50s means you don't have to worry about Rosa taking a big bang and getting KO'd in one shot. And I think if you ask anybody who's done a Z fight over the past 2 weeks, they're going to tell you, yeah, I'd love to have my Rosa with 2800 HP, please.
That is a big reason I am a huge fan of Power Couple. Rosa's higher HP pool and her general all-around resistance to magic makes it a lot easier for her to get through those big bangs.
And you can see, the speed here is low enough, and I think Zilch is so unconcerned with the magic damage, is actually going to just Zerk Cecil and let him get the job done there.
Oh yeah, when you're coming in with 1800 on a shop, a Baron and boss is not long for the wolf.
So it looks like I think it's safe to say, at least amongst these two runners, Zilch has a little bit of a content lead here. Since Penguinator is heading up to the tower, will likely to be doing both halves, even though I know it's kind of his forte to do both. To do the half tower. I mean, at this point, we're so low on options, you gotta do both of them. So Zilch is probably going to give us our next unknown check, most likely the Luca key, since the alternative is not fun.
And And indeed, Zilch heading down into the sealed cave.
Now, Zilch is really hoping that this actually has a key item here and we don't have to go straight to Wyvern. But we got a cursed ring, so, it's the Mega Nuke itself isn't going to be the problem as much as trying to outrace the other nukes while still simultaneously doing damage. That can be kind of tricky for the Wyverns in particularly long spots. You would like to actually have Iridia here to force some counters, since Asura's magic is really high. Those counter Mega Nukes will do quite a bit of damage as well, and the HP point it's only around 20 something K, which it is a lot, but in terms of Mega Nuke damage isn't really too much to worry about. So that would be helpful, but we don't have Iridia, so unfortunately that's not going to be a thing we'll see applied. So yeah, I bet Zilch is really hoping to find like a Pan or even the Baron key would be nice. Something that is a branching key item and can avoid hopefully seeing that Wyvern.
Well, Zilch did choose to open up a couple of the chests that you basically have to trip over on the way down Sealed Cave. And
Yeah.
in doing so, had to fight the greatest boss of all, the inventory boss. However, he was rewarded for his struggles with a lovely tiara.
Yep, one of the best equipment. It's great for Iridia because it gives a boost to her black magic, but even for Rosa, it's fantastic magic defense. And hey, exactly what he's hoping for here, a Pan.
Yep, it's a lovely find. He's right in the neighborhood to go play Whack-A-Monk and then run up to Sheila and see if she actually has some goods and was being coy, or if not so much.
There's a couple bosses here that can be tricky due to the high speed and high magic of this particular spot. Val is not fun, but not particularly annoying. You're definitely not going to get away with casting magic spells on her, I'm pretty sure, in this spot. And she's going to be very, very phased. So, yeah, it's annoying, but we have at least 2 characters that can cast Blink, and as soon as we get Blink up on all the characters, you really only have to worry about the petrification.
Once we get our Dragoon up in the air, although might be cursed with a ring at the moment since he's in the anchor spot, then Cecil will actually be able to reach through for considerably more damage than he's putting in now.
Yeah, I almost wonder if it's worth it to have Kane jump at this point, because A, she's so fast that you're not going to get that much time to cast a spell. B, what is the black magic spell you're going to be casting anyway? And then C, she's going to do more physical attacks, so it would actually make the blinks go off a little faster. But it'll also lower her physical defense a bit too, so you'll get some more damage out of that Cecil, which is pretty much our only form of damage at the point right now. So I could see both reasoning for both strategies.
Right. He's doing between 2 and 3 times damage per swing. And yeah, absolutely right. It does put a lot more pressure on the blink casters. And with Rosa down, that job is falling to just Porum and Tella. So it's definitely a thing to balance. But at the moment, he's got everyone flickering and he's keeping Rosa down, likely for that slingshot you mentioned earlier. So far, it's working out.
Yeah, in fact, the speed of Valvalis is actually working to Zilch's advantage, because she's basically going back into spin mode at about the time that Kane is getting his next turn up and jumping anyway, or at least close to it. As we saw the last one, she went into spinny form, and then Kane came right back down from the air immediately. So if that's the way it ends up working out, this is definitely going to be a solid play.
Penguinator is answering the question for us of what twin is in Hypo.
So it was on the right, opposite dominant hand. left-handed Palom, so yeah, I think Zilch is probably saving Palom for a potential slingshot. Palom is another character that greatly benefits from having a slingshot, and we're close enough now. We're approaching 10 key items. In fact, Zilch is sitting at with the pan. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So Darkness Crystal will at least be 10. If Zilch decides to take a D Machine fight, is only going to have to do 3 in order to get Palom to nuke, which is going to amp up the offensive capacity of this team a whole bunch. Penguinator, on the other hand, looks like is not actually doing the sealed cave and might be hitting up Wyvern.
It's the significant divergence. We've had the runners take their own routes through the seeds and sometimes meet back up, but they've kind of taken the checks as you had to go, and we now have that major choice you talked about earlier, neither of which were comfortable. Zilch has chosen the sealed cave and is following that chain. Penguinator going down into Feymarch. We will see what they're each rewarded.
Yeah, this is definitely the turning point as far as decisions go. If Darkness Crystal is immediately behind this pan, Penguinator might be a little bit behind.
Well, it's not Darkness Crystal, but it is a very shiny rock. It's an adamant, conveniently placed underground so that Zilch can go straight over and open up Kokol's shop. Now, this is the classic Forge objective, which means that Zilch will not be receiving a convenient Excalibur for his Paladin, but the objective will be checked off, and Kokol's shop on S Pro is your only chance to get some of the best things around. So it's a wonderful find nonetheless. Kokol's gonna hop down.
I guess that always sealed thing, maybe there's something to it. It is a required sealed cave. Now that's something the Penguinator. I'm not sure if he gets the Darkness Crystal here, if he immediately goes to the Giant. Well, actually, he might immediately go to the Giant if for no other reason to get that slingshot and then get the Giant boss down. But I'm not sure he would orphan Lucre Key in favor of the Moon. We'll see. That's definitely a decision he's going to be faced with at some point in time if that happens to be Darkness Crystal. If it's not, then, well, that's unfortunate because, you know, it's Wyvern, and this is going to be a little bit of a timely fight.
If it turns out that Sheila has the darkness, then this isn't going to do much good, unless, of course, it's the Earth Crystal, and we have a Haunted Moon. But if the darkness is here, then that at least gives Penguinator a little bit to catch up.
Yeah, I think a Haunted Moon would actually be worse for Zilch at this point, because if Zilch gets the Darkness Crystal here, he's gone. I'm not sure he goes back to get the Wyvern. It's, well, I mean, okay, Excals are good,
right?
but I don't think it's what he's looking for right here.
So we have the Excal that Kokol said he was going to keep. Apparently, Wyvern bullied him out. But as for Zilch, the chain continues as Sheila hands over a Baron.
And that Baron key has to lead to Darkness Crystal, because that's our last key item check to do on the blue planet. Well, at least that we have available.
Right. It could still be more of the chain. We could have a rat tail or something behind Baron, but this is part of the road nonetheless. Beowulf alertly spying the coffins in Kokol's shop. There were also ribbons and heroin robes, if anybody felt the need. And Mr. Bus Driver, yes, you're thinking 3 of 4 because that's been the thing for the 3-miss zone practice. But this All 4 are required. You're not going to get away with fading any of these objectives tonight.
So while it's bad news that the Wyvern didn't have anything, at the very least, a little bit of a funnel here is going to put Penguinator back on the path. He's going to be one Valvalis Luca Cave fight behind. We'll be able to make up a little bit of time on the Val fight with that X-Cal. Is going to do pretty fair amount of damage above the defense sword, so we'll make up some time there. And then we'll see who's at Baron. I would imagine if this, pretty much regardless of what this happens to have, I would be surprised to see the runner fade the Odin spot. I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get there to see what the Baron item is. But I think at this point, with our relative party strength, that this is pretty much going to be a 2 key item check.
I completely agree. Even if you find the Darkness Crystal, you're right in the neighborhood of Odin. You don't want to fade it. You don't want to, even worse, completely forget about it. So you just take it while you're in the neighborhood and go on with that. The real question, I suppose, is the order. Do you charge straight across to the Odin spot so that you don't have to walk back in the castle, or do you go up to the throne and save before diving into this?
Yeah, that can be a spicy call sometimes. I think Ogo being here, while you're thrilled to see Ogo in a low HP spot, is still going to get that big wave in and force you to do enough healing that it might give it. I think it'll give Zilch enough of a pause that you go Baron Throne and just give yourself the opportunity to save. And then sometimes you get that trolley second boss in Baron, and then now all of a sudden you reset and you have to do the first boss all over again, which always feels kind of bad. So I think we'll probably see Zilch head to Baron in, but it's definitely an option if he wants to take the charge into Odin and maybe get a little bit of an advantage there.
And Zilch is going to play it straight and go right up and see who has usurped Baron Throne.
And I guess an octopus is deciding to take over Baron, ruling over the kingdom of Baron at the speed of Mach 20. Is going to take out. Well, actually, he's probably not going to do anything because the physical attack in this spot is relatively low, and as soon as you get a couple hits in, he loses tentacles, and as we all know, when octopuses lose their tentacles, they lose some of their speed, right?
That's how it works. It's a bit of a shame we've already seen Leviathan. We could have had a noodle parliament if he was in the basement. Penguinator with that Excalibur making short work of that Valvalis and is coming up on Zilch's heels. Still a ways to go to catch up.
Yeah, but I think you can see he's definitely made up a little bit of that time here. Is going to probably be leaving or heading into Baron at around the time that Zilch is heading into the Odin spot. As far as characters go here, okay, well, never mind. I don't think we're taking this character.
Spoon flag is not on. Nowhere's near go mode for spicy Edward strats. Not that I think I want to Edward strats with this party. Yeah, I can't see it.
I think it's the only character at this point in time, because we haven't seen edge weapons. We all know there's an unwritten AI thing that if you get edge swords, then you will not get an edge, or you just kind of tend to not see them. But we are on C7. And is that character number 6, if I'm counting right?
I believe so. I believe this is the first time either of our featured runners have even had the option of whether or not to bring someone into their party. And that means 6 at least. And I don't think there's been a 7.
I think the only character at this stage that you'll see our runners replace would be Fu, and probably replacing Horum would be my guess. Oh no, we Palom is character 7, so there you go. So
Right.
Fu is
Absolutely.
he's taking the night off.
Yep. Alum is the one Zilch hasn't found. So, from our vantage point, we know who the 7 characters are. Fu might also have come in for Tella if there was a Fu. But this is all hypothetical.
Yeah, and we're getting late enough in the seed where I'm not entirely certain at this point now the runners would even want to commit to a D machine grind. Just because we're looking at possibly being in the mid to upper 30s when we do get that darkness crystal. That might be enough to take on the CPU boss as is, or the elements boss, and those 2 bosses with 10 key items are going to give 200k and 300k respectively. So that might handle the grind right there. Zilch is still committing at least to keeping Rosa KO'd, so there's probably going to be some form of a slingshot here. Now, Mom Bomb at Odin is kind of spicy.
Yeah, the spot has enough hit points on its own. I want to say right around 20k, but you get that 10k bonus from Mom Bomb, and even after it's done pounding you and you set up your blinks, it's still likely going to blow up.
Yeah, and it hits hard, as poor Kane can testify to. Blinks up will kind of mitigate the damage, but as you said, that extra 10k that you have to get through if you want an explosion skip is not certain this party is going. It's going to be a close one, and if he does explode, the magic is high enough here, and the HP is not great, so it's going to do a significant chunk.
Now the question then becomes, if you don't get through, do you figure that you've got the party to make it happen again, or do you just have to bite the bullet and fade the check and hope that it's not a big deal, kind of as was done with Faye Marcher?
I'm not sure, only because I feel like the problem they're going to run into, you can see, yes, 700 damage on that explosion. But if they can survive the first round of hits, Zilch will be okay. After they get a second round and they start self-destructing, that's going to be a problem. The reason why I'm not certain he might fade it is because the problem that Zilch is going to have with Wyvern is going to be the same problem here, and that's a lack of offense. But I could totally be wrong, and he might head to Fame March right now. We'll see. Oh, it's entirely possible he also just didn't heal.
So, certainly one way to have the fight go down better is determined to keep that Rosa down. So whether it's D Machine or the massive XP from elements or the ribbon boss, a slingshot definitely appears to be in the future.
And this is another spot where that Excal from Wyvern is going to give Penguinator a pretty fair amount of time, because not only is Cecil going to be wielding an Excal, but that also moves that defense sword in a Kane slot. So you're going to get great offense from one character and good offense from a second, where Zilch is just getting good offense from one. And it looks like Kane is rocking a flame spear, if I'm not mistaken. And it's at this stage in the game, that's not great damage, and we already saw what a lack of offense, what kind of a problem that's causing Zilch on this fight. So Penguinator is going to be able to gain a little bit more time here, if nothing else, on the Odin fight.
Yeah, Zilch is so unimpressed by that flame spear damage that he's not even asking Kane to do work on getting through this Mom Bomb timer. He's having Kane play chemist, tossing Cure 2s around to the blinkers. Oh, well, there's our reserve.
Yeah, 800 damage at this stage of the game is pretty underwhelming. And we're not really likely going to see a whole lot of looting. So I wonder if that's going to convince Zilch, even if he gets the darkness crystal, to not do the giant right away and instead start hunting for the earth crystal, hoping that the experience from the moon bosses might at least alleviate a little bit of the time loss he'd be looking, whereas if he just went on a straight up race to the giant with Penguinator, who is rocking top tier weapons on 2 characters and has a black mage to boot.
Right. A move to the giant would, I think, be a commitment to a D machine grind so that you can feel confident in taking the bosses out. You definitely don't want to go up there and have to turn away and spend all that time.
Oh yeah, for sure.
The giant on T Pro, especially the last arm chest, can be particularly spicy. So that might be something that's on his mind, missing that Excalibur, is that if he loots the giant, he might find that missing piece of gear that can kick his party into another gear.
Okay, so Moon is
that's another way to kick your party into gear.
This does a lot of things for our runners. We don't have Moon's haunted. That's confirmed. Moon is absolutely haunted. We are not going there. If for no other reason, maybe to check the character. If Zilch didn't see that was Balam, that's about it.
On the bright side,
issue number 2, the treasury.
Right, the treasury will definitely kick them overdrive. But on the bright side, the way that these key items fell into place is that by the time you get around to picking up the darkness crystal, it's the last thing. So you can't be trolled into clearing a home.
Yeah, I mean, unless you decided to fade the tower, which is a relatively risky play that you wouldn't expect a lot of runners to make, you're pretty much looking at a very linear seed. Now, we need to keep an eye on the loot that Zilch gets here. If he gets even just a second defense sword, that's going to temper some of the advantage that Penguinator is going to have going forward. But if we don't get an offensive weapon here, more ribbons. I don't think we need that. We've seen plenty.
Ribbons, crystal rings, a ninja cap, and so far a Stardust Rod is the only offense that has shown up.
Yeah, Moonveil's nice. Okay, Goognir, the Googs is pretty good. I still think Penguinator is sitting in a better spot as far as offense goes, but it'll help a little bit. I wonder if now at this point, we're gonna see who the characters are first and get Earth Crystal done. But there is the question of, does Zilch decide to fully commit to the slingshot and pick up Palom and maybe dump Aurum in order to get a double slingshot and have like a super offensive capable party?
Well, if you don't have the weapons on your melee characters to take down Z, you're leaning on those mages, and you've got to level them up to their key spells to get them through that Z fight, so that slingshot could be super helpful.
Yeah, it's a dicey decision. It's almost you probably wouldn't, if you're committing to the slingshot strats, you might almost not want to see the Earth Crystal there and hope that you're going to reap the benefits of having a super high powered party through a difficult moon boss. So I wonder if that's going to alter Zilch's line of thinking going forward. But as far as like the bosses we see here, there's a couple that could be tricky in the second spot just because of the high magic stat. But I'm pretty sure Zilch is going to walk all over whatever bosses we see here.
And Penguinator, demonstrating the advantage of an Excalibur, Zerkt Paladin is able to land roughly 3k per shot, and he gets through the Mom Bomb on the first pass without an explosion.
Yeah, and will be in Zot at the same time as Zilch, or at least very close to it. Penguinator may be feeling comfortable enough in gear just with that X-Cal and the defense sword that you might actually skip the treasury here. I'm curious if he decides to try to get that time advantage here after Wyvern only paid off with the X-Cal.
skipping a T-Pro treasury is a bold move, but you're absolutely right in that it would be justifiable and understandable in the circumstances. It's a very high-level case of what we said earlier. You got to know when to leave the loot alone and be satisfied with what you've got. And sure enough, you called it once again. Penguinator, taking off straight to Zot, says, I'm not impressed with your treasury.
And really, like, the only, I think, game changer he might have gotten might have been that Stardust Rod, which would be nice to have on Palom, but it's not the main source of damage. He's banking on our relative agility 1 X-Cal, relative agility 1 defense sword, kind of doing the damage here. So yeah, that was a very good time save and is now right on Zilch's heels.
Yeah, honestly, if you've got power couple and a holy sword on that paladin, the two of them alone can just about get you through that Z fight. Having defense sword on Kane is a very nice bonus. And the other edge, we were talking about this is the flip side of when your mages are your DPS, you've got to get those levels. If your warriors are your DPS, you don't quite have to grind so high to get Z ready.
That's something I need to be telling myself like 5 times a seed when I'm running the 3 zone seeds and I have a crystal sword and I still find myself looting that Fame Arch because there could have something good. But yeah, you're absolutely right. At like X-Cal and Rosa, you're pretty good for the rest of the seed. And Penguinator showing how just skipping, one room of 24 or more potentially really good chest has only put him 1 boss fight behind, and that Asura fight went by really quickly.
He is hot on Zilch's heels, and I wouldn't be surprised if he caught up during this plague fight.
Yeah, especially if you see, yeah, he's gonna make up some damage. One nice thing about having the cursed or employing cursed ring strats is count will never actually expire on a character that is berserked. So with a cursed ring, as soon as you get the berserk on Cecil, that's essentially game set match, and there you go. But yeah, it's making up time. Like every single dungeon just been a little bit of time, and you'll notice Penguinator is now keeping both Palom and Porum KO'd, is looking to potentially set up a slingshot, if for nothing else, from the giant bosses experience, because you're going to get so much experience from those spots.
So I was a little optimistic there. Penguinator's going to enter the plague fight right as Zilch is leaving it. Zilch completes the next objective and gets a package.
Wait.
So what have we missed? Rat Tail.
Oh, Rat Tail. Okay.
Good catch, Mr. Bus Driver. Good catch.
To fix our face, I totally didn't see where did the Rat Tail come from Baron? I'm guessing it came from Baron. All right, so this has to
tell us.
Okay, cool. Yeah, our tracker sheep launcher.
Baron Castle, thank you, sheep launcher. Or was it Sheila?
All right, so yeah, that with us being pretty much out of key items, that now has to be the Darkest Crystal, which means 16 out of 17 was on the Earth, and Moon is probably an armory and nothing else.
And of course, all of these key items are on the Earth, but the one key item that's not there that would have made this even quicker, the pass.
Yeah, I think if you full cleared Earth to get Go mode, and you haven't gotten the pass yet, I think it's safe to say you're not really losing that much time, because if somebody did happen to orphan the Rat Tail, which is very unlikely, and did the full clear of the Moon, they're not saving time by getting the pass and doing 6 extra bosses. So you're not feeling too bad about not having the pass. Um, and yeah, all right. So objective number 3 is taken care of. Big whale is raised, and I believe we're heading straight to the giant. The question now becomes: do we actually take a D machine grind 82 minutes into the seed, or we just rely on the giant boxes to kind of get us the slingshot?
And it's that thing about that sense of a seed that comes with experience and gets better. There's no specific time that always says, hey, this is when the duns are coming in. But you get a feel for a seed and how trolly it is, and a sense of, am I on pace? Am I behind? Do I need to pick it up? Or do I need to take the more obvious route? One thing is, we don't have any duns yet. So, what do you think? If you're in they're in these shoes, Flurry, how are you feeling about your place in the race?
If I'm Zilch, I'm feeling pretty good, but a little concerned about me making the play for the slingshot and it potentially not really paying off. I'm a little surprised to see the check for the shop. I'm not sure. I mean, cabins there are going to be great, and you're going to want that after the elements fight. And this might potentially be looking for a character number 7, so that also leads me to believe that Zilch didn't quite catch that Palom was character 7 there. Now, another Cecil isn't going to hurt if he had the X-Cal. That would probably benefit Penguinator more than it would benefit Zilch. But you see, Penguinator, I think he's probably going to head straight to the Giant, and that might actually even things up. So if I'm Penguinator, I'm feeling a little bad that I did the big whale. I'm thrilled that it was an X-Cal, but that's a spot that most of the runners are probably going to skip. So at that point, I feel like I need to make up at least that fight's amount of time. And that's one reason why you saw him skip the treasury. And I think Penguinator is probably not going to. Oh, okay. Might have just.
Oh,
he meant to go
I thought Penguinator was going to reaction grind, and I was nice, but no.
So I don't think we're going to see Penguinator take a D Machine fight here. Zilch is still committed to the slingshot strategy. It's a little late in the game, so I think he kind of just goes forward. Who the boss here is going to dictate a lot of that. I think the only freebie we have left would be the Water Hag, if I'm correct, but I could be wrong.
I think the water hag at Fabul? Been an hour, I'm not sure. Thought we saw a water hag, but I can't swear to that.
There you go. So let's see. I think we haven't. Have we seen parents?
Baron guards?
Yeah.
Queen Evelyn, for that matter, the freest of bosses.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one. I think.
I tell you, I love it when I see a King Queen at Elements. Give me that free XP.
If we wanted the spiciest of spice, we would want to see Kainazo here.
Ooh, that's so rude. Kainazo at Elements. We have not seen that rude turtle.
That's the one that I think we haven't seen yet that would probably hurt the most. But all right, so hey, look at this. Our runners are going to
give us a free XP on both screens at the same time. Zilch and Penguinator are getting the good news.
This is so close. All right, so this is definitely going to see all characters stay up here. If you have a slingshot, this is as good a spot. The only character I might consider not wanting to get the experience would be Tella. And quite frankly, with a cursed ring, Tella can afford to get these levels, and that's okay. I guess the only other time save you would think about having here would be, are you going to actually go back and cabin up after this fight, or are you going to swag walk into CPU? Sometimes it is faster to actually KO these bosses first instead of letting the cutscene play, but you're looking at a lot of HP. So I think you just let it rock and go with the minute 20 that it normally takes to let this play out.
I think if you have enough DPS to cut down King Queen Evelyn and elements without triggering the script, then you have nothing to fear from the rest of the seed. But
Yeah,
you know,
right.
every time I say nothing could possibly go wrong, that's when the seed said, "Did you consider?"
Now the DK the what's that thing? The CPU spot has its own issues in that it's super fast, its magic is super high, and its attack is super high. But its HP isn't that great, and our character's got a pretty significant boost. There are a few bosses that can still be dicey in this particular spot. I'd be a little sad if I saw the Magus sisters here, for example. But given where our two racers are at, this is going to be so close.
And it's a wonderful example of how back and forth these racers can be. Well, we've got dolls at CPU, but like these are two of some of the best racers at this game, and despite having different paths through the overworld, they came together in a lot of spots. Penguinator made one extra check that got Zilch out a little bit in front, but that extra check gave him that X-Cow, which more than made up the time.
And this one, another extra check that is going to pay off in spades for Penguinator is making the check for Palom. One Quake is going to end this fight. Zilch does not have a strong AoE at this point. So it's going to have to deal with the physical attack of this, which isn't going to hurt as much as it usually does, but it's still going to hurt. But it's going to have to take time dicing these dolls very carefully to avoid the big doll. So just getting Palom probably saved Penguinator about 2 to 3 minutes right there.
Now, a bet that was missed, not that Penguinator needed it, but the coffins that were in Kokol's shop would have come in handy for him right here.
Yeah, it would definitely make things a little faster. You could use the coffins on the blue dolls. The pink dolls are going to have enough HP that our melee fighters should absolutely take them down in one swing. So then you could queue a coffin, then queue a Cecil attack, and bada boom, you're done. But yeah, without the coffin here, this is going to be a little tricky. You could cast Toad on the blue dolls if you really wanted to and see some hilarity ensue when the transformation happens. And then pour him as the giant character just to kind of rub it in like, hey, you could have had this guy. Oh, yeah, there's the Toad cast. I'm not sure he's going to get it off in time, though, because this spot is really fast.
Well, I hope he does, because I've never seen purple balls turned into toads, and I want to see this hilarity. Oh, so sad.
Ah, big doll.
So how does that work, Flurry? Fill me in.
So it actually happened to me in the very last race, where it says turned into Calbrina, the music changed, but that frog there is still a frog. And I'm not even entirely certain that you actually get the HP change, because when I did it, they took him out in one swing. Now, there was also a Zeus Gauntlet Crystal Sword wielding Cecil, so that might have been the reason why. But fortunately, HP in this spot isn't quite as much, and it's split in two because of the whole doll mechanic. So Zilch was actually able to melee it down before it came back. So good on Zilch for getting that done. What could have been a potentially catastrophic fight, but did lose a couple minutes, and Penguinator is now making the walk to the Z fight. And I didn't see what level his Rosa was at, but gotta be pretty high at this point.
And with all of the great defensive gear that I have no doubt that Penguinator has loaded onto Rosa, we've seen we did get a ribbon drop and a crystal ring. So with that on Rosa, you feel confident in her ability to stand up to the big bangs, and as long as she keeps Paladin alive, swinging that X-Cow, I don't foresee much trouble, especially for Penguinator.
Yeah, I mean, the Seed has had more ribbons than the textile factory, so there's plenty of magic to go around. Zilch's Rosa is at level 47, which is traditionally very good enough, but Big Bang rolls can be Big Bang rolls. Now, Penguinator's is at 43, so only sitting at about 1800 HP. Yeah, that ribbon or tiara is pretty sweet, but is going to need that damage to push through. If he starts eating 9-hit Big Bangs, that's going to be a little difficult to deal with. Now, we are seeing some flags pop up in chat. Whatever could that mean?
It means it's time for everyone's favorite question. Whose butt are we going to kick tonight?
I'm kind of hoping for Foremost. I haven't seen that guy in a while.
I still want to see Potatoes. What we're talking about there, for anyone that doesn't know, is that stat-wise, Zeromus is what he is. He's always vanilla. He always does the same old thing time and time again. One thing he does is he transforms when the crystal's used. So the random part of Zeromus is that there are hundreds of sprites into the pool, put in by our very own Scala Kitty, and you get a random one each time.
You have one for every day of the year, and still go into March of next year.
And by then, we might have enough for that year as well.
So Zilch not entirely comfortable with Rosa being at where she at, is going to take a double red giant fight here with the life glitch. This is going to be about 100k, so it's going to at least push Rosa into the safety range, whereas Penguinator is just going right in, is kind of making the bet that X-Cal Cecil and Defense Sword Kane is going to do enough damage pushes that you only have to see 1 or 2 full hitting Big Bangs, and yeah, this is going to be kind of tight. And hey, look,
Temp job boss!
I'm a final boss.
Oh, I love it.
Oh man, the subtleties of this sprite, like seeing how the text bosses line up on the top to be just nestled right alongside the other the magic boss with the perfect alignment on the top and the bottom is so, like, I can only, as someone who has spent tireless hours getting CSS to properly align, I can only imagine how long that must have taken.
That we cannot say enough the amazing work that Scala Kitty puts into these Z sprites. Another fine example.
And geeky programmer note, if you ever had to do CSS before Flexbox and get vertical alignment to go off, it could be a pain. But yeah, super appreciative of the alignment on this sprite. And then, hey, if you didn't happen to check the job dwarf, and I think both of our bosses did, there's a little bit of karma here and him coming back and saying, you didn't see who I was? Check this out. I'm a final boss.
So, Zilch sitting on Rose's turn there for a minute.
Yeah, the big tense moment is going to be the first nerf Big Bang isn't going to be that much of a problem. At around, he's got RA1 at around 6k per round. It should be enough to at least phase push and not see the Big Bang, at least in that phase. But it's not going to be enough to get away from the Big Bang from after the phase switch. So you'll notice he might get a shake off here, but I think Penguinator will have enough damage to not see a Big Bang right away, then you would see shake number 2. If you don't, then we could have a little bit of okay, so Penguinator is chance and is going to try to nerf this.
That's what I thought he might have been doing when he was waiting on Rosa. Figured that possibly he's counting the damage, looking like, do I have phase tip? Do I have phase tip? And then if I see a shake and I don't have phase tip, I pop the nerf, but then he might have gotten there with it and passed on it with Rosa and not quite made it there, and it looks like the nerf got missed.
That could be really costly because we're certainly going to. Oh, okay. So he might have actually phase pushed earlier, and that
I
was
think so. Yes, I think when he was holding Rosa's action, and then changed it to a Silk Web or Starveil. I think at that moment he realized he'd shifted from 1 to 2, but when he Alum, he realized he didn't make it through phase 2, and we don't get a rock dodge, and oof. That's rough.
Oh no! So he actually did phase push, but was doing so much damage that after the black hole, he actually carried to Meteor phase, and neither one of them survived. If he would have gotten just one dodge, oh no! And now Zilch is going to have a chance here. Is now going into the Z fight first, and that extra safety red giant fight could very well pay off here. Not going to have the offense that Penguinator had. So it's probably going to see a few more big bangs than Penguinator did, but is far less likely to take a wipe here. And oh man, this is gonna be so close.
It has been absolutely back and forth, nip and tuck between these two racers. Neither one of them getting a huge lead at any point that the other racer didn't find a way to almost immediately negate. And it has been, I'm not at all surprised to see them both give us an amazing race that is coming right down to the wire.
And we don't have any finishes from any of the other racers that have run. So this could very well be for first place. And this must be doubly tense because we've gotten a pretty linear seed, and you're not as likely to have checked that moon just given where the key item locations are. So as a runner, you're thinking everybody is going to finish in such a short range of time that it just makes the Z fights even more tense.
Absolutely. These long linear seeds, it comes down really to your tech knowledge, your ability to make up those little bits of time off of moves that we've seen, like skipping certain loot checks, and you just know that your game has to be on point to take it down. And like you said, no duns yet. You feel like you're just looking over your shoulder and it could show up at any time.
All right, so first nerf big bang is down for Zilch. Is going to have a little one nice the Palom in Penguinator's party isn't really going to be accomplishing that much in this fight other than maybe bouncing a virus here or there. So Porum in Zilch's party, now not having the Palom, might actually swing a little bit there as well, just because having a second character that can cast Berserk is super nice, but it also frees up Rosa to reflect a Holy as she's doing right there, and may result in seeing one less big bang, just because Porum was able to handle the healing of the nerf. Oh, Tella, and your cursed ring virus damage. You're so adorable.
You know, I mean, at this point, how much of the damage is Zeromus going to take directly from the virus, and how much of it is going to be ticks later on?
And with, a solid lightsaber and defense sword is solid enough that with the white bounces, you don't have to worry about phase pushing. You're going to get there. So you can get 2 casts of Holy off, and then maybe hold off on Rosa a little bit, and then, you're even more safe.
Got a quick moment. What does Cursed Ring do, and why do they have Tella from the 5-men? So Tella is wearing Cursed Ring so that he has no agility. It's a relative agility thing that I will not go into real hard, but basically Zeromus is so fast that the only hope you have of getting everyone else to be as fast as Zeromus is to take one person and keep them very slow.
Yeah, Cursed Ring takes basically every actor in this fight and puts them at maximum speed. So for a boss that is that much faster than you, and Zeramus is that much faster than our party, it puts all of the runners or all of the characters on even keel. And being as fast as possible is doubly good for berserkers because you don't have to spend the time actually entering commands in the ATB cycle, so you're not losing time by pushing fight and then selecting a target. It's the action is taken automatically for you, which is why you're seeing all the characters take 1, 2, 3 swings before Zermus even has a chance to act.
Penguinator getting as much value out of his Palom as he can using a Quake. It's quick cast time to try for a big bang nerf, and he pulls it off.
Oh, but Zilch is in medium phase. Couple more swings. Yeah.
And with plenty of hit points on his people, it's just a matter of getting that last bit of damage in.
Oh, show me a kamikaze swag finish, please. Oh, okay.
And there's a flash. Zilch taking down first place in this extremely tight race. An official time of 1:43:09. GG, Zilch. Well done.
And we have rocks on Penguinator's side, so we are not more than 30 seconds away from a finish on Penguinator's. And I think Cecil's damage is going to outpace the rocks. I hope. There we go.
Wow. Penguinator taking down second with 1 hour, 43 minutes, 43 seconds, less than a minute. Nay, close to 30 seconds in an hour and 3/4 race between these two very talented runners. GG to both of them.
And this was so back and forth. I would imagine we're probably going to get both of them in here at the same time. And yeah, like super well done. This was a seed where sometimes a seed that can be linear is also one of the most tense fights because everybody else is on the same footing as you are. So finding those advantages to sneak in and out of the lead is really difficult sometimes to do on a seed where everything seems to be kind of laid out for you. But we still saw plenty of examples of Penguinator taking the lead, then Zilch taking the lead, then Penguinator taking the lead back, and then Zilch taking the lead back. So a really good example of how some of the more minute things, and whether it's just skipping a chest or checking the sand ruby or taking an extra fight, can absolutely make the difference between two close runners.
So many micro things. Inventory management, finding those extra moments, just so much. And we are indeed joined by Zilch and Penguinator. Congratulations to you both. Super close race.
Thanks. I'm excited to watch that back.
Yeah, thanks. We've been less close if I didn't wipe, but pretty exciting finish.
Yeah, that was the last moment Zilch got you. You were both back and forth, one in front of the other, finding ways to make up the time that the other one got a lead, and you got into Z first, Penguinator, and that rough end to phase 2 is what proved to be the final.
So I guess the one question I want to ask both of you guys, this probably more pertains to Zilch, in that you guys both, in some degree, were committing to, especially seeing an early tele, to slingshotting a character at some point in time. But then the Darkness Crystal just didn't want to show up and decided, oh, hey, check everything else first. So was there any point in time where you're thinking of abandoning the slingshot strategy at some point, being concerned that Rosa may not get enough experience to take on the Z fight?
I wasn't actually planning on it initially. The initial bosses decided to just go attack Rosa nonstop, and I figured, okay, I'm just going to leave her dead and slingshot her later. But really, once you have a Porum, early game, it's not any different than Rosa. So Rosa wouldn't have really helped that much. The main difference would have been when I would have got a heroine robe at like Kokol shop. But by then, Porum was already leveled enough, and I had Kane and Cecil, so the damage wasn't really lacking. So I figured I was going to need to do some form of a grind. The giant bosses would probably be enough to get Rosa to Z levels, and they were. So I don't know. I guess I wasn't really planning on slingshotting initially. Then after Rosa kept staying dead the first like 2 fights, I just stuck with it and figured I'd get the levels at the end.
Yeah, and on my end, I wasn't really getting too hard for the slingshot. I did plan on slingshotting Palom if needed. You might have noticed I think I flew to the desert when I got the Sand Ruby and then decided to leave Palom for a little bit later in case I wanted to slingshot him. But once I found the Excalibur, I figured I wouldn't really need much of a slingshot, if any. And I think my Rosa picked up experience on pretty much every fight. And just with giant bosses, Rosa's typically high enough level to get Cure for, which is all you really need with Excal Cecil.
Suppose if I had realized that was the other twin in the Sand Ruby bed, I may have actually picked up the Palom. I just assumed it was another Porum. I'm like, we don't need you.
That ponytail, so hard to figure out at times.
Twin, ignore, continue along.
Yeah, that was actually
interesting thing, though. You mentioned that Excal Cecil. Zilch, when Penguinator, when you were picking up that Excal, Zilch had gone straight to Luca. So he actually never got a hold of that Excalibur. That was a moment where he got out in front, but you put that Excal to use on the Tower of Zod, and especially that Mom Bomb in the basement, and made up a lot of time.
Where was the Excal?
Wyvern.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I think part of the reason I was doing that Wyvern at that point is I decided it was time to grab Palom in case I wanted Quake for something. And then so Wyvern actually with that party setup, it was actually a fairly easy spot for me to get Palom a good amount of experience and slingshot him up to Quake.
Yeah, that was kind of the
so I would do everything else first.
Yeah.
And that Quake came in handy too when you ran into those dolls.
Yeah, that was actually about the only time I actually used Palom, I think, was the dolls.
Yeah, I remember Toad too late and telecasted it on the transformed Calbrana, so whoops. But it was more experience, so yeah, we'll call that a planned grind.
Cool. Well, did you guys have any final thoughts before we start to shut her down? As far as this seed went, you guys were totally back and forth. I would definitely recommend checking out this VOD. I know we had actually thought that you were intentionally leaving the Palom for a slingshot since you had Rosa down. It's like, all right, well, as soon as he gets Darkness Crystal, he's going to grab Palom and then go. But yeah, did you guys have any final thoughts as far as this seed went?
GG Zilch.
Thank you.
Nice run. And I hope everyone enjoyed their brief respite from vanilla agility. It's back to tournament grinding tomorrow.
Yeah, thanks for the commentary and restreaming and tracking, guys. Also, Mom Bomb sucks, so we'll just leave it at that. Board face AI too strong.
Oh, let me tell you, if you want to see a good example of board face AI, you should watch Penguinator's Bound Ordeals fights.
Oh my goodness.
I will do it.
Thank you both for volunteering to be restreamed and for putting on such an amazing race. It was a thrill for everyone in chat to watch, and it was a thrill for us up in the commentary booth.
All right, and I believe that is going to wrap things up. I would like to give a special shout out to our tracker Sheep Launcher and our restreamer Scala Katie for doing an excellent job making things happen behind the scenes. This can't happen without y'all. So did an excellent job tonight. We do underground racing seeds every Tuesday night at 8:30 Pacific. Our next club showcase, I believe, is going to be a week from tomorrow, which would be the Mysidian Jump Club. And yeah, we're going to go ahead and shoot a raid, I believe, to Leggy Starscream, excuse me. And yeah, hope you guys have a good night. Commander Leonhart, this was absolutely a blast and had fun doing this all night. So thank you very much.
Thank you as well, Flurry. And yes, an absolute blast in the booth up here with you. Look forward to doing it again soon.